live. Okay. Well, go ahead and get started. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to One-on-One with Uncle David. Tonight's topic is a little personal for me. In upwards of 100 million people in the United States suffer from a sleep disorder. Obstructive sleep apnea is the most prevalent. It is caused by fatty tissue in the muscle in the back of the tongue, and it causes you to stop breathing when you're asleep. I was diagnosed a couple of years ago. Luckily, for me, it was my doctor said it was extremely serious. In fact, it was so serious that they put the numbers in red letters. So everything else was black until they got to the part about 59 instances in an hour. So that let me know that it was extremely serious. My guest tonight also suffers from sleep apnea. She was diagnosed, I think she said when she was 30, after she fell asleep behind the wheel of her car. So she has created a podcast, Sleep Apnea Stories. It is a platform for people to come on and share their journey, their stories, from diagnosis to treatment. So without further ado, I'd like to bring on my guest, Miss Emma Cooksey.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for being here. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that was perfect. I'm just feeling a little bit lame because I'm in my closet. And your background's really fancy, and I'm like in my closet.
It's okay.
So I'm hiding from my children and our puppy.
Ah, okay. So how long have you, when were you diagnosed? Or how long have you been with CPAP? I mean,
so I think I suffer, in retrospect, it's really easy, right? You probably find this too, that after you're diagnosed, a lot of the things make sense, right? And add up. So I had a lot of the symptoms of sleep apnea for all of my 20s. Oh, are we there?
Yes.
Sorry. And I would wake up with a dry mouth. I snored. I had all of these indicators. But I went to many doctors and I just was never diagnosed with sleep apnea. Nobody ever thought that could apply to me. So then cut forward. So originally I'm from Scotland, which is why I have a strange accent.
I hear it.
I have my husband in Scotland, and he grew up in Jeddah. Mm-hmm. And we met in Scotland and got married there. And then he decided he wanted to go home. So I was like, I guess I'm moving to Florida. So we moved to Florida in 2007 when I was 30. Okay. And I got pregnant with my first child straight away. And so what ended up happening was I was really, really tired. But a lot of people with a newborn baby, they're really tired, right?
Yeah.
So, but my baby used to sleep all night. So I think that this is one of the things that you make yourself believe, like, oh, it couldn't be a sleep disorder. It's just because I have a baby and I'm super tired. Right. So short story is I was driving back from my mother-in-law's house over the Buckman Bridge in Jacksonville, which is like a 4-lane each side, huge bridge. And I was behind a huge truck. And I remember kind of trying to stay awake and like looking at the license plate in front of me and just being like, just focus on something to stay awake because I was so tired. Well, then I fell asleep while I was driving, and like by the grace of God or some miracle, I woke up and slammed on my brakes, and I didn't hit the truck in front of me, and I didn't drive off the bridge.
Wow.
So yeah, it was pretty. I was really shaken, and then I got off of that bridge. I called my husband, and I took a 20-minute nap, basically in a parking lot on the side of the road, enough to make it home. And then I called my doctor when I got back, and I said, I don't know what's going on, but I need to get a sleep study and figure out. So then I had a sleep study, and just like you were talking about, so they diagnosed me. My numbers don't sound as impressive as yours, but I'm telling you, I still was not sleeping well. So I was stopping breathing about 25 times an hour.
Wow.
And they gave me a CPAP machine, and I've been using a CPAP machine ever since, so almost 13 years. And so last year I decided it's becoming more like there's more awareness now than there was 13 years ago, but it's really slow progress. And I find that the awareness among people is so low that this is such a terrible silent illness, right? That really affects your cardiovascular system. Like it causes heart attacks and strokes, and people just aren't really paying attention to it. So I think it's really great that you're doing this episode so people can start thinking about it.
Yeah, because I know for me, my wife, I would be sleeping. My wife, she couldn't take it. It's like you're snoring so loud, you sound like a bear. Da, 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 da. And I'm thinking, maybe I'm tired, but I did notice that during the day, I would be sitting and I would doze off, and I was like, wow. So I went to apply for a job that required me to get a DOT card. So I'm in there and they're doing the physical, and they do the measurement of my neck. And the lady looks in my mouth and she's like, okay. And they never said anything. So the doctor comes in and he's like, do you have a problem sleeping, or do you, are you tired during the day? Well, of course, I said no.
Of course.
And so, yeah.
Men, you're a man.
Men were stupid and our pride, So he was like, well, I want you to get a sleep study. And at that time, I didn't have insurance. So I go and they say, well, you have to pay $1,600. So I'm trying to figure out where I'm going. And there's no payment plan, no layaway. It's like, okay, we need our money up front. So, I just went on and it kept happening. And then I know a couple of times I would wake up and my heart's racing.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that I had a nightmare. But as I learned and as I started to read more, I found out that it was because I wasn't breathing, and the brain clicked. And these are the things that I learned once I had the sleep study, because they gave me an at-home one. So,
which actually the at-home studies these days work extremely well. So, people shouldn't think like, oh, I shouldn't do it because it'd be better to go in for an actual physical sleep study overnight, because you actually often they can get all the information they need to treat you just from a home study.
Yes, they had a little thing hooked up to my finger and something else. So, and I go back and they show me the paper and they got in big red letters, 59 episodes in an hour. And the lady said, she told me, she said, this is crazy. And so as I was talking to her, I found out that, a lot of people don't snore. And, I said, well, how does it happen? She's like, it's weight and things of that nature. So I was reading the other day and it says, even if you're skinny, you can still get sleep apnea, and a lot of times people, they don't realize, like with you, you had the baby and you thought, I had a baby and I'm just tired. And I found that no matter how early I went to sleep, how long I slept, I would still have that issue.
Yeah.
So I would tell anybody that's listening to go.
Yeah. And I think so what you said, so there's a couple of things going on. And I've just had, this is like my favorite subject. So I'm just having a ball on my podcast because I get to talk about it all the time. So what I would say is the people who seem to go longest without being diagnosed are people that don't fit the stereotype of being overweight older men, right? There, no doubt a lot of overweight older men do suffer from sleep apnea. There's also a lot of slender women. It affects people from all backgrounds. Like, I think also what you said about access to healthcare is just key.
Yes.
Like, if people don't have the access to the healthcare, they're not getting the tests and they're not getting the treatment. So that's a huge part of my mission, is to fix that somehow. You know, I think that the more that the home studies improve and are cheaper than having to actually go into a lab, hopefully that will improve the amount of access people have to those tests. But I would also, you can just stop me at any point because I could just talk.
Oh no, you know what? I for me, I have grown an appreciation for understanding sleep apnea. I've been doing some reading, and I'm like, wow, you know, I didn't know this.
To it, right?
You know, yeah, and it's the thing about the muscle in the back of the tongue, where the fatty tissue grows, and it just sits there. And I was watching, and they talked about how. Excuse me, 1 second, Emma. Eastad, thank you so much for those super chats. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much, man. Wow, thank you. I appreciate it. But you know, the things that I'm learning, that it is more prevalent in men because we develop the fatty tissue more so than women. But after you get a certain age, like 60 and up, that's when it's just like everybody can get it. And
but also, one of the statistics that keeps me up at night is something like 80% of people with sleep apnea are undiagnosed. So that just means, like, and I think a lot of the people who, I mean, just overall, not enough people are being diagnosed. But I think especially women are not being diagnosed. I think younger people are not being diagnosed. Like, if you have children who sleep with their mouth open and snore, that's sleep disordered breathing. Like, you need to take them to get that checked out, right? So, and the other thing I was gonna just mention is, like, so your response to the doctor is completely typical. Like, my husband doesn't go to the doctor unless I make him an appointment and pretty much take him there. And they ask him questions and he goes, I'm fine. I seem fine. I don't have any problems. Whereas when I would go to the doctor, I would usually be in tears and I would just say, I'm so anxious all the time. I'm exhausted, but I wouldn't necessarily say that I was sleepy during the day. I was just exhausted and anxious. And so the reason that the anxiety is such a big part of sleep apnea is the cycle of you fall asleep because your throat closes, right? That we're talking about obstructive sleep apnea. There is actually another thing called sleep apnea, which is a lot rarer. It's not what most people have. So specifically obstructive sleep apnea, your throat closes. That means that the oxygen gets cut off to your brain. So your brain starts to, as the oxygen drops in your brain, it activates stress hormones, right? So it sends you adrenaline and cortisol to wake you up. And so people with sleep apnea, what it looks like is their throat closes and then they wake up like, because they're sent all of these hormones from their brain to wake them up, which is good. We want to be woken up and not die. But that all night, if you imagine, I mean, you said that your number was like in the 50s.
Yeah, it was 59.
So, right. So that means that cycle is happening once a minute for you, right? If it's 59 an hour. So you're basically going throat closing and then breathing normally for, like, 20 seconds. And then it happens all over again all night, right? So that's partly why a lot of people have so much anxiety and have that, what you were discussing with your heart pounding. And I used to wake up with a sense of impending doom every morning. And so it's all kind of linked in, you know, it's like definitely your whole body is affected by it.
Yeah, yeah, because I noticed when I was, when I was reading it, they tell you that what happens is the diaphragm is pushing up, your lungs are trying to expand, and because of the obstruction, the air isn't getting there. So the lungs send a signal to the brain that, hey, I'm having a problem. Can you help me out? Oh my goodness. I'm sorry, Emma, but this guy is just loading me. Yeah, he's dead. Thank you, my brother. Oh man, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. He says I'm broke, but y'all deserve it.
Oh, kind.
Thank you. Yeah, but they send the signal, and so the brain wakes up out of its sleep.
Yeah.
And sends the air, and as long as the brain is awake, you're doing good. The air will flow. But then once you go back to sleep, and then the brain goes back to sleep, it starts the process all over again. So it's like back and forth and back and forth.
Yeah.
And by the time you get up, you're still tired, because I know I would wake up.
Oh yeah.
And I'm feeling like, okay, I'm okay. I'm gonna be all right. But then during the day, it would hit, and I'd be sitting watching TV or reading, and all of a sudden I'm like, I need to take a nap, or I'll just be like, okay, I'll just close my eyes and I'll sleep for a few minutes, and then I'm back up again, and I'm like, man, this is crazy, and the cycle. But now that I have the machine, it's a lot better. I find that there's some nights it's uncomfortable, and you actually hate it, but you have to love it and appreciate it, because if you don't, then it's going to turn into something really bad. And
so let me ask you all my favorite CPAP machine questions. So tell me what you don't love about it. Have you tried different masks, or did you just go? You have tried different masks. Okay, I'm just checking.
I now use the mask, like the oxygen mask that sits, with the little rubber things, and it's that one. I had the one with the little thing where you put it over your nose, and it was another one. I had the one that like the oxygen mask, but it was all plastic. It was just hard plastic, and it was rigid, and there was no. I mean, I was like, oh no, I can't do this one. And the little one, it was like I felt like, I don't know.
So the little one is the nasal pillows. Do you mean the one where it goes up your nostrils?
No, it's like a little rubber thing, and you put it over your nose, and it's like the oxygen mask is just for your nose.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Like a nasal mask.
Like, I don't really like this one. It wasn't comfortable, but the one I have now, it is. I think because my I may have it too tight, but then if I loosen it, then the air seeps out, and the machine starts making crazy noise.
The whole. I think a lot of people find themselves in that, like, my mask is too tight and it's leaving marks on my face, which is not, that does mean that it's too tight, but then if they loosen it, they get air and leaks, and that's no good either. So it is definitely a work in progress where you have to try different things. One of the things a lot of people have talked about that have been on my show is have you seen those little covers for your CPAP mask straps? Like for people with narrower faces or smaller faces, they have like a sort of padded kind of mask strap covers. There's ladies like on the internet that make these things, but like some people find things like that to be helpful. But yeah, it is a lot of trial and error, and it can be an extremely frustrating therapy, right? Like I think a lot of people, the number of people I've heard that they went to their doctor and they got prescribed a CPAP machine, but they hate it and they don't want to use it and all that. It's so many people. And it's, I think a lot of it is lack of support. Like there's no you're having to kind of go online to figure out your machine and keep going back to get different masks, and it just takes a lot of effort, you know. So I totally get it when people get frustrated and just don't want to do it.
Yeah, it certainly drives me crazy, but you know, I like I said, I find that when I don't use it, because the lady said that even when you take a nap,
Yes.
you should, if you're laying
Even
down
when
to
you
take
take
a
a
nap,
nap, all
put
the
it
time,
on.
every time you lie down.
Yeah, I've figured it out, you know, but I don't care about the marks. I've gotten past that. I'm
Okay.
like, you know what? If it leaves marks on my face, that's
Yeah.
fine because they go away. You know,
Right.
it's like when you sleep on your arm and you wake up and you got
Yeah.
the little. It goes away. So I'm not that vain anymore about, you know. I'm like, I don't care as long as I
How
can
much
get.
how much of that do you think is an age thing? Because I'm 43 and like I've been married to my husband, you know, 15 years. And he is just like, I don't really care what you look like, providing you sleep well and you're not mean, right?
Right.
So like, whereas I talk to people who are like in their early 20s and they're like, I don't like the way the mask looks, and you know, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
difficult with dating and all that. And I get that, but I think that I'm just at the point where I'm kind of getting older, and you know, like it's more important to me to get quality sleep than what it looks like.
Yeah. Well, see, you know, when you're young, life's a little different, you know, and
Yeah.
you want to make more of an impression with people. You know, if you're a young man, it's like you don't want the ladies to see this thing on your face, and if you're a young lady, you know, it's the same thing.
Right.
But I know for me, I just turned 59 a couple of weeks ago,
You look
and
good.
so
You look good.
well, thank you. And so I'm like, I really don't care. You know, it's like
Yeah.
I want to make sure I get a good night's sleep. You know, and I, you know, because like when I don't sleep with the mask on, I'll fall asleep, and next thing I know, I'm something. Hey, I'm like, uh-oh, because she's like, "Are you gonna put it on?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
She's like, "Put the mask on." I'm like, "Okay, I got it." And then I'll doze off back to sleep, and then she'd be like, "Okay." And then, you know, each warning gets a
That's good
little
though.
more, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
because it's like I can't take this, you know. So I get up and I, you know, I put on the mask, and then I find that, you know, the house is quieter, you know, and everybody, you know, it gets to sleep. So it's something, it takes some getting used to, but I would tell anyone that has any of the symptoms, um, to go. And it is not necessarily always somebody that snores. You know, if you're up during the day and you're just tired, especially if you feel like you know, you went to sleep. Say you go to sleep at 9, you wake up at, let's say, 7, which should be more than enough time to get enough sleep. But during the day, you're tired. You know, you're just sitting there, and you know, you fall asleep. You know, and so I suggest, I don't care how old you are, I don't care how your body's built, just go and get the test done, and find out if you in fact have, you know, sleep apnea, especially the obstructive one, you know.
And sometimes I think like, so sometimes we might want to tell everybody, like a lot of the time it's to do with advocating for yourself. So I have a really great, well, of course I'm extremely, you know, privileged and fortunate that I have health insurance and I have a doctor. So
Yes.
for people that do have a doctor, like they probably, like just a care physician or GP, they don't really get trained in sleep medicine, right?
Mm-mm.
So even people in my privileged position go to their doctor and say, I'm tired, I have anxiety, I have morning headaches, I, you know, like sleep with my mouth open, have a dry mouth, all of the different things. And also like brain fog and not being able to think of things during the day. That's another sign of sleep apnea. So I could go and say all those things to my doctor, and depending on your doctor, they might just say, "Oh, let's test your iron." You know, like they might not necessarily, those things might not be red flags for them, but they should be red flags for all of you. Now you're listening to this, right? So if
Yes.
those things are happening to you, you go to your doctor and you say, "I have these things. I see that there's on sleep apnea. I would like to be referred for a test." And for people that don't have health insurance, I know that, you know, like there's clinics and that kind of thing, same thing. You know, like if you actually say, I think I have obstructive sleep apnea, I want to be tested for that. Like, you know, that's a different thing from going in and just saying some of the symptoms, right?
Right.
At that point, you're advocating for yourself and you're saying, like, I need this treatment.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You know, so, but you know, luckily for me, like I said, I was able to get diagnosed, and now, you know, it works.
I'm really pleased.
And you know, because I didn't realize how serious it was.
It's so serious.
Yeah, and until you know, when they told me that it comes from you stop breathing, and my wife said that she would, you know, be laying there, she'd be looking, and she's like, you stop breathing, and my first instinct and my first reaction was, oh, she's just exaggerating, you know. It's like, you know, like, what are you talking about? I stopped breathing. What do you mean? You know, if you stop breathing, you die. And I'm like, but you know, I was being very cavalier about it, and because I really didn't understand it.
Yeah.
But once I got the diagnosis and I saw those big red letters,
yeah, it's scary.
And I started to do a little bit of research, I'm like, oh, I could have died. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah. And oftentimes, so this is the really sad part of this, is oftentimes people don't know they have sleep apnea until they pass away from something related to sleep apnea. And the doctors are like, oh yeah, did they have untreated sleep apnea? Well, it could be that. So it's probably worth telling people about some of the things that untreated. So you and I are the lucky ones, right? We have treated sleep apnea. So our CPAP machines, we have mass of whatever shape and size, but doesn't really matter. And it's pushing air down our airway the whole time to keep it open, right? So we're not suffering from these ill effects because our machines are making sure that our brains get enough oxygen. But if you don't treat sleep apnea, and I think for some people, you know, they're tired, but they can carry on with their normal day-to-day life, and they're just like tired, and they're like, I don't really want to wear the mask. I'm just going to keep going. Well, the problem is that can lead to strokes and heart attacks. And so it's either undiagnosed or just people that have been diagnosed, but they're not treating their sleep apnea, are much higher risk from stroke and heart attack. So
there was a football player that passed away. His name was Reggie White.
Yes.
And they said that when the paramedics went into the house to get him, the CPAP machine was sitting right there. He just never used it.
So like, I actually had a dentist, Dr. Joy Fremont, who is in Hapeville, Georgia, and I believe she knows Reggie White's wife. But that's exactly what she said was, you know, he just hadn't been using the CPAP and passed away. And I've heard that story so many times.
Yeah, I knew that he had been diagnosed, but just until recently, I was watching a video about him, and that's when I found out that he actually had the machine there.
Yeah,
he just never really wanted. He never wanted to use it for whatever reason. But you know, I'm glad that I used mine. I'm glad that my wife stayed on me. You know, because like
I think your wife is the rock star of this whole story. Right?
Yeah, because you know, us men, we're like, you know, what are you talking about? Because like I said, what do you mean I stopped breathing, or I'm snoring and keeping the neighborhood up? And I'm like, you know, that's impossible. Nobody can snore that loud. Until we had a neighbor one time that he snored so loud that we had to call the rental office, and they transferred them to another apartment. But it was really loud. And you know, I asked my wife, did I sound like that? And she's like, yeah. So, you know.
And I think, so I don't know what you think about snoring, but I think in our society, we have this problem with people kind of make fun of like, oh, he's just snoring. as though it's kind of like a funny thing, and
Mhm.
it's really not, because it can indicate much more serious things going on. Like, I remember my dad always snoring when I was growing up, and my mom just being really annoyed with him.
Yeah, well,
But
both of my parents snored, so we would actually lay in the bed and try to develop, because they had a pattern. My father would go ah, and my mother would go ah, and so we, now as I look back, maybe there were some issues, but I was a kid, so I didn't
yeah,
know, and
no,
I didn't find out until I became almost a senior citizen.
right.
But like I said, I'm grateful that, like I said, my wife, she stayed on me and made sure that I, got it taken care of. And, we have our little jokes about the machine, but
We do
I'm
too.
just glad that, I have it, so.
Yeah. And I think also it's probably worth saying that there are some other options apart from CPAP mask, but it's one of these things where there's been so many developments recently in sleep apnea. Like, a lot of these things are expensive options, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for some people who just, like, I've had a couple of people on my show who have horrendous claustrophobia, and anything on their face is just
Yeah, it drives them crazy.
the worst, right? So I had a woman on last year, and she was saying she had really bad claustrophobia, and her main problem was she had what the doctors were calling a mild cognitive impairment. Like, it's almost like dementia, right? Like, she
Mm-hmm.
couldn't think of things, and she would forget everybody's names, and it was really severe. So she ended up getting this thing called an Inspire implant. I don't know if you've heard of that, but
No, I haven't.
it's basically I mean, am I gonna get it? No. But for some people whose lives are really impacted and they can't use a CPAP, it's a device, almost looks like a pacemaker, that they do a little surgery to put it in your chest, and then they run a wire up inside your neck, and what happens is it sends an electrical pulse. It has like a little remote control, and you turn it on when you go to, I know, look at your face. And you're like, what? So she has this little remote control thing, and she goes like this and presses a button, and it turns on the unit here, which sends electrical impulses to her tongue. So what often happens with sleep apnea is your tongue falls back in your throat and blocks it, right? So for this woman with this Inspire implant, every time she breathes in or inspires, her machine realizes that she's breathing in and moves her tongue out of the way. Isn't that crazy? Like, it uses like an electrical impulse to kind of move her tongue. And I spent the whole interview kind of going, does that not feel weird? What's that like? I don't know. But this woman is like literally went from not being able to work to working full time, and like, her relationships are back to normal. She knows everyone's names. Like, her life was absolutely transformed. And she was like, it's not just that she didn't like her CPAP. She just literally would have a panic attack when she just had the worst claustrophobia. So there are some other, I think my main thing is don't give up. Like, even if the CPAP is too difficult, there are some other things. Another thing is some dentists who specialize in sleep medicine will make what's called a mandibular advancement device, which basically moves if you imagine your tongue is attached to your lower jaw. This thing is like you're kind of like, this is so weird. So you know what? Like, it looks almost like those whitening trays, or like a little Invisalign thing or something, but it's on both your top and your bottom. And then what happens is they're kind of joined together, and it moves your jaw forward just a bit, so enough to keep your airway open. So some people, that would be no good for you because you have severe sleep apnea, right? But people with mild to moderate sleep apnea who can't tolerate a CPAP can do one of these mandibular advancement devices. Now, you have to go to a specialist dentist, probably not cheap, but once you have it made,
I would imagine it is not.
right. But if you know, if your other option is, you know, not treating your sleep apnea and ending up having like a heart attack or a stroke, like, you know, it might be worth looking into that. And the price of those is coming down now that they're not quite as new.
Okay.
So that's kind of another thing for people to be aware of.
Now, I know I read where somebody asked the question, is there a surgery that you can have? And I was reading up where you can get the surgery where they cut the tissue out, and I'm like, I don't know, that doesn't sound, because and they also say that there's no guarantee that the fatty tissue won't come back, because it develops, you know, it develops naturally depending on you. And if my thought process is, if you cut it out, it was going to grow there anyway. So if you cut it out, it's just going to grow back, because maybe there's something that is in your genes, or, you know, your DNA there that is just supposed to be there. So
I feel like you and me are like team CPAP right here. Because I also look at all the surgical options and go, I don't really fancy any of those. But here's what I would say. So there's I've had so many people on my podcast that have had all sorts of different procedures done. So one of them most recently is an MMA surgery, where they break both your jaws and move your whole. See, we're not interested. I'm out.
No.
Right. So that is a thing that some people have been doing, is moving both jaws forward. Yeah, that gives you a much bigger airway, no more sleep apnea, but it's
definitely
really
going to change the whole dynamic of,
yeah.
I mean, it changed. No, that's okay. The thought of having my jaws, I'm not even worried about what it looks like. The thought of your jaws being broken.
I know, and that recovery is months of like no solid food and drinking through a straw, and that part doesn't really appeal to me. But that is an option for some people with pretty severe cases. And then so what you're talking about is the UPPP, where they go into the back of their throat and take out a bunch of the soft tissue there. So I would say like that's kind of it's been developing a bit more recently, like, so that there are some surgeons now, totally agree with what you said, like a lot of people who have had that surgery, their tissue grows back and they end up with sleep apnea again, and it's like, you know, not the best. One of the things they're doing now is where they're using like a microscopic camera to you know, make sure, and they're doing kind of I don't know if it's a drug-induced sleep endoscopy, but it's a thing where they basically create how your throat closes, and then they take out only the part that's actually part of the problem, right? Rather than gouging the whole back of your throat out, they're just saying, well, this is the specific part that's collapsing. Let's take some of that. So I think that the success rates with that are higher, but again, like, I don't know how many ENTs are actually doing that kind of a procedure.
Yeah, I
don't fancy that either.
No, the thought of surgery, I don't care what kind it is, I pass.
Yeah,
it's especially when there is no guarantee that it's going to work anyway. You know, you go in there, you pull this stuff out, and then let's say 2 years later, I'm back where I started.
I know.
Not like you're going to give me a refund.
No, they're not giving any refunds.
When you sign the papers, it's like, well, if it develops again in X amount of time, you know, we have a money back guarantee. You know,
exactly. And even for people like me with the health insurance, my out of pocket would still be a whole bunch on a surgery, right? So I don't really fancy any of that. The other things that sometimes people do, though, that I have heard, like I had my tonsils taken out when I was 19. And some people, especially younger people, like kids who have sleep disorder breathing, like they're snoring a bunch, and sometimes taking out the tonsils can help. I certainly did that when I was 19, and at the time I didn't know I had sleep apnea.
Okay.
But I think like if I still had those big old tonsils as well as everything else going on, I'm sure my sleep apnea would be even worse.
Well, now that we're sitting here, I'm wondering how long I had it before
I know.
you know, because I'm just glad now that it's being treated.
Yeah.
You know, but I encourage people to go and get the test done.
Mm-hmm.
It's not only just it helps you to breathe and all of those things, but the rest, you finally get to rest. You actually get. I find myself when I wake up in the morning, I feel refreshed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have that problem like during the day. I want to just go to sleep.
Yeah.
So anybody that is feeling like they're sleepy during the day and and they've had what they think is a good night's sleep,
time.
you're feeling like go get it. Go get the test. If you're waking up in the middle of the night, feeling like you've had a nightmare, because a lot of times that's what you think. You're just having and that was me. I was thinking that maybe I just had a bad dream and somebody was chasing me, but in fact
that's how it feels because your heart's pounding and you're like,
yes,
oh.
yes. And I remember one day I was laying on the floor and I dozed off and I woke up and it was like I was in a full panic, and I never said anything because I didn't want to worry anybody, but I was like, man, this is crazy. I really need to get this taken care of. So I finally was able to get some decent health insurance, and I went and they did the sleep study and had this whole thing where they'd sit and talk to me and told me, you got to do this, you got to do this. Make sure that if you go to sleep, if you're just taking a short nap, put the machine on, because when you go to sleep, and then I was reading something, they said, well, if you sleep on your right side, it helps. So I tried that today.
I like the left side better than the right side.
Yeah, no, it says sleep on your right side. So the thing was, I said, okay, I'm going to try it. So I tried it today, and my wife was laying there, and she's like, hey. I'm like, okay, it didn't work, huh?
So here's another thing really quick. You can just cut me off whenever you want me to stop talking. Here's another thing, though, is positional therapy. So this is something that I would try before I would definitely go and get a sleep study. But even if people snore and they don't have sleep apnea, or if people do have sleep apnea, try elevating the head of your bed. Either get like a wedge pillow, or I just literally am old school and I just put piles of books under my mattress at the head of my mattress, and my apneas per hour went way down. Do you know why that works?
No.
Because of gravity. So if you imagine sleeping on your back and what position your tongue is in, it's falling back into your airway, right?
Right.
So if you just elevate yourself, and it doesn't even need to be a lot. Like I have my mattress up maybe like 6 inches, 8 inches, something like that. And it's enough that, and of course, lying on your back's not the best. So one of your sides, I think left side, but if you think right side, that's fine.
No, they said right side. So I tried and it didn't work. So I usually sleep on my left side anyway. Yeah,
left side is good. So one of the reasons I like left side is some people have like GERD and acid reflux. And so those things are much better if you're on your left side because your stomach is not compressed. Your stomach's kind of up higher, which is better for that. That's what I've read. I don't know. So anyway, like head elevated and on your side is way better than flat and on your back.
Okay.
Reduces like the number. I still want people to go and get a sleep study, but if you're gonna do, that's the kind of low tech thing that's really helped me that people can do.
Yeah, we're definitely not doctors.
No.
Speaking from my experiences, so don't say that Dr. Dave and Dr. Emma said that I should I don't
No.
need to go get tested. I should just lay on
No,
my
I'm
side.
definitely not a doctor
Okay.
at all. I'm just some woman that's had sleep apnea a bunch.
And so I guess now is the question and answer moment of the show. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. And
I feel unprepared.
oh, don't worry.
It's my first time doing anything live, so I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't think it could happen.
Yeah, I try to keep this as simple as possible,
right.
And not get overly extravagant and
right.
all that. So
it's been really fun. This is fun.
Oh, and one of the young ladies, the keto girl, says she loves your accent.
Oh, thank you. It's so weird. My boss at work says that I sound like a Scottish Valley girl. I don't think that's a good thing. I'm just like, well, thank you, I guess.
So where in Scotland are you from? Uh-oh. Eastad, thank you, my brother. I'm speechless. I appreciate all those super chats. As I like to say, super duper super chats. Thank you so much. It's greatly appreciated.
Shave too.
Huh?
Eastad said you need to shave.
Again?
Yeah, that's what he just said.
Oh, he's talking about my nope. No, I think we're done. Oh, excuse me. I think we had some technical difficulties. If she comes back, we'll stay on for a little while. But thank you all so much. Eastad, you have outdone yourself, young man. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. I really do. We love you too, man. We love you too. I thank everybody that came through. The Keto Girl, More Eats, Pam Money. Who else was in here? G Fam, Mrs. G is trending. Sonia Waddy. Thank you all so much for coming through. I greatly appreciate you all. Wow. DJ Dr. Uncle.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you, Keto. I appreciate that. Yeah, peace and love to you as well. Yeah. Oh yeah. There's no more DJ. The DJ has been put out of business. YouTube said no more. That night, they stopped everything. They sent me a message saying your content has been removed because you violated community guidelines. Oh, excuse me. So I'm sitting there and I'm in a full panic because I'm trying to get in the studio. It won't let me in. I'm like, oh no. And then they're like, well, since this is your first time, it'll be a warning. But the next time, if it happens again, you won't be able to upload for a week. And then I guess, I don't know what happens for strikes 2 and 3. I don't care. I'm not playing nothing. I'm not singing anything. I may talk about music, but I'm definitely not playing it. And nope.
He said, oh damn, I love Pam. Like he just remembered that he loved Pam.
Yeah, but it some people, I guess they have. I've heard people have tried them. He said, can't live in this world without loving the Keto Girl.
That's the truth. Amen to that.
So I'm like, you know what? YouTube. If that's what you say, then you know what? Oh, she's back. Hold on 1 second, y'all. Well, welcome back.
Thank you. Some sort of like, I don't know, my kid doing something with the router, or I don't know. You call it a router.
Okay. Yeah, well, I was asking, what part of Scotland are you from?
Oh, so I was born in Aberdeen. I'm originally from a small town called Dunblane, and that's where my parents still live. And I lived in Glasgow for about 10 years.
Now, the
So
only
kind
place
of
I've
all
heard
over, a little bit of
Glasgow.
everything, really.
The only place I've heard of Glasgow.
Yeah,
I think that's about it.
Glasgow's the biggest city, so
That's
yeah.
probably why.
So I grew up in
probably
kind of.
happened here, and I saw it in the news, or maybe I heard about it during a geography class in school. I think, I don't know.
So you're kind of like, if someone says to me that they're from Minnesota, and I go, "Oh, where in Minnesota are you from?" And I'm like, "I've got no idea where anywhere is in Minnesota." But it seems like a nice thing to ask. I don't know. Maybe I'll go one day. I don't know.
So how was the weather down there in Florida? We were there about a month ago, and it was really cold here. So we left here. It was like 30 degrees, and the further south we got, the temperature started to go up. And then we got to Florida. We woke up the next morning, and it's like 80 degrees. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm sitting out on the balcony on the patio with shorts and a T-shirt, and it's February. And I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's nice, but I think that this winter has been cooler for us than most winters. But like, I'm not gonna lie to you, I do love it. Like, in August it's too hot, but the rest of the year I love it that it's always sunny and we can be outside all the time. My kids just, like, we're so fortunate we have a backyard with a tree, so my kids just play outside all the time.
Okay.
That is not what my childhood was like.
No. Now, for me, I lived across the street from a playground, so it was like, okay, during the warm months, it was okay. I would get up if somebody had a basketball or something, I would hear it, and I'm up and I'm running across the street to the playground. I'd be there all day.
Yeah.
Now you almost have to make kids go outside.
I know.
They want to sit and play the video games, and I'm like,
yeah, they do.
You need to get some air.
Yes.
And they're looking at you like, what is air? I mean, before COVID.
What am I supposed to do out there?
Yeah, I think before COVID, they were like, I go outside to go to school. So why do I need to go outside when I get home? And I'm like,
yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. My kids, I mean, like my 8-year-old Rosie, she loves some Minecraft. And she's like on her iPad. I have to take it away from her. And then the 13-year-old has a phone. So, I mean, it's just, I don't know what to tell you. But I do just pretty much just go outside. And I mean, I don't lock them out, but I just am like, go and play.
They have all that, and the kids have all that energy. And if they stay in the house with all that energy, it's like spontaneous combustion. And it's like,
they just mess everything up all the time.
Yeah, you're like, hey, you know what? Really?
And then the three of them, my husband and my 2 kids, made me get a puppy.
What kind?
A ridiculous mini golden doodle, because I'm allergic to everything. So they were like, we've thought of everything. You're not even allergic to this kind of dog. So of course I was like, I don't want a dog. And then when he came, I was like, okay, he's actually the best dog ever, and I kind of love it.
Of course.
So I love the dog. But he's messy too. It's just a whole bunch of messy. So I just try and keep them outside. That's my main goal.
Yeah, I want to have a dog, but no, my wife, she doesn't like animals, and she says if we get a dog, but if we get a dog, she wants one of those little what are those little things? Not the Chihuahua. Yeah, a Yorkie.
Yorkies are so cute.
See, that's the problem. I don't want cute. I don't like I want a dog. I actually would like to have a German Shepherd
Oh,
because
a big
I
dog.
want when somebody knocks on the door and they have bad intentions, I want them to make sure that they make a life-changing decision, whether they want to come in or not.
Right, and they're like, German Shepherd, no thanks. Like they're gonna say German Shepherd, no thanks. I'm just gonna go on to the next house.
The little dogs, they just yap yap yap. Like my neighbor has one, and all you hear yap 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 yap. It's like, I can't stand them. They just get in the way. They're like little hairy rats.
Ours isn't. Ours is like a mini golden doodle. Like golden doodles are like big, right? Because they're kind of like golden retrievers and poodles. But ours is a mini one, but he's still pretty big. I mean, he's still up to my knee. So I don't like those tiny little dogs. I'm worried that I'm gonna like step on them.
Yeah. Sometimes But it's getting close to the 8 o'clock hour.
Okay.
We run from 7 to 8.
Okay, cool.
But I thank you so much, Emma, for coming on.
Of course.
And I will definitely be coming over to check out more of your podcast and learning, more about sleep apnea.
Oh, there's so much to learn.
Yeah. I went over to the website and looked at some stuff, and I'm like, okay, I definitely need to go over here and listen to this and learn about this and read this and talk to this person.
Yeah.
I find that, and with this platform that I have, it's not just it's like information for to get the information out to people. I understand that it's not always up to me to get the message out. That maybe I'm supposed to be the facilitator to help other people get their message out. So I appreciate and thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, and thanks everybody for listening.
And we'll definitely have to do this again and have some more conversation about sleep apnea.
Yeah, for sure. I'll come back anytime.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And also, I'll send you a message, but I have a guy who is offering his merchandise T-shirts to all the guests. So I will send you his information.
Fancy.
And you can get in touch with him. He has his own little clothing line. So
cool.
And full disclosure, he's actually my cousin. So he's got some stuff going on.
He's in the family.
Yes,
I like it.
So so I'm gonna give you that information.
Cool.
So again, I thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I will see you next time.
All right, sounds good.
All right. Again, that's Emma Cooksey. She is the host of Sleep Apnea Stories, a podcast that allows people to share their stories and journey from diagnosis to treatment for sleep apnea. Take care and good night, Emma.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Alrighty, everybody. Hey, Lily. I thank you all for coming through, and I hope you got some information, useful information. East Dad, thank you, my brother. I appreciate you, as always. Like I said, if anybody is having problems sleeping, if you wake up in the middle of the night in a full panic, and you know that you didn't have a nightmare, or if you've fallen asleep during the day because you're just tired, go get the test. Get a sleep study. It will change your life, and I know for sure it has changed mine. And so I hope that you go and get the test. I can't emphasize that enough. I will be live again on Thursday, so I will see you all again. And don't forget to come over to Aunt Maddie TV. Don't forget to enter for the contest. Yeah, she has a contest going on where you can win a mystery box from Fireball Fred and Mary Yo. All you have to do is go over to the love stream from Friday, and in the comments, put enter me, enter as many times as you like. And she will be announcing the winner tomorrow evening during the love stream at 7 o'clock. I think it's at 7.
Yeah.
Yes, it's at 7. So half sleep apnea. Oh man, each day you remind me. I look at sometimes people have these little they have the vanity tags, and I sit and I watch and I try to figure out what it is they're saying or what the tag is, and when you posted that when you put that right there, it kind of reminded me of that, and sitting there trying to figure out what it was you were saying. So I thank you again, Easter. I cannot thank you enough, bruh. I appreciate you. I really do. And thank you all for coming out. I will see you all on Thursday. Until then, remember to be happy on purpose and know that I believe in you, believe in you too. Ain't nothing wrong with that, Easter. We all have that. As they say, girls grow up to be women, and boys, we grow up to just be boys. But I thank you all so much. Good night. Peace.